General Hospital spoilers tease that the wild storyline surrounding Sam is far from over. In fact, it's quietly expanding in directions more unexpected and profound than anyone could imagine. Her prolonged silence isn't a full stop, but more like the deadly calm before a real storm hits. Sam may not appear in front of viewers every day, but the consequences of her absence are directly reshaping the emotional and political structures of Port Charles. Triggering a chain reaction that is redefining everything, especially when paired with the sudden and mysterious departure of Lulu, a woman once deeply connected to Dante. Lulu left Port Charles after a series of unbearable events. Discovering that Gio is not her biological son shattered the fragile world she had tried to preserve. She no longer recognized her family, no longer felt she belonged in town, and above all, no longer had the strength to face the doubtful gazes of those she once loved. She withdrew, quietly, but decisively, leaving a massive void in Dante's life, the man she once believed she'd spend her life with. Dante, in the aftermath, is no longer the man he used to be. The once steady soldier now finds himself torn between personal loss and the responsibility of fatherhood to Gio. A child he has raised with all the love and integrity he could offer, even though the truth about the boy's lineage has distorted everything. Each passing day leaves Dante feeling more hollow, more lost, not just because Lulu is gone, but because he has no one left to confide in, no one to lean on, no one to ask, is this really happening? It's at this moment of vulnerability that a door to the past creaks open, carrying the name Sam. Sam's absence all this time hasn't been an ending, but a preparation. She didn't disappear out of fear or weakness. She vanished to gather intel, to retreat into the shadows and determine who could be trusted, who was playing both sides, and who needed to be exposed. With investigative skills honed over years of survival and inquiry, Sam has become part of the very darkness she once fought, not to surrender to it, but to master it. Now, as Port Charles is torn apart by secrets, conspiracies, and invisible power struggles, Sam is ready to return, not as the woman of tangled romances, but as a warrior with the cold resolve necessary to end what others could not. Her return is not simply personal. She's not coming back just for Dante, though their unresolved relationship still simmers beneath the surface. Sam is also returning for Gio, the child whose past has been twisted by a network of selfish adults. She senses that something is deeply wrong in how Gio came into the picture, in how Lulu withdrew, and in how Dante is now being manipulated by incomplete truths. More importantly, Sam detects a larger conspiracy, one that links Ava, Rick, and Drew, each involved at different layers. A covert web of power is pulling strings across the town, and Sam knows that if she doesn't rise and act, Port Charles will no longer be a place where truth can be trusted at all. Dante needs someone who can speak to him with logic but also understand his emotions, not just a lover, but a partner, someone willing to walk into the darkness with him without asking why. Sam is that person. Their relationship once had tender moments but was never fully explored. Now, with Lulu gone and Dante's past warped by lies and family trauma, Sam may be the only one who can bring him back. Not necessarily to who he once was, but to a stronger, more grounded version of himself, unshackled from outdated illusions. What's unfolding is a radical shift in the General Hospital narrative. With Sam's return, every character involved will need to reposition themselves in the game. Ava, who always thought she held the upper hand, may be blindsided. Rick, with his manipulations of the legal system, might be exposed. And Drew, still trying to conceal the darker sides of his dealings and personal secrets, could be dragged into the light by the very woman he thought was gone for good. But above all, Sam's return is about breaking the cycle of relationships warped by lies and power. She's not returning to fall in love. She's returning to define what love should look like in a world that has long since lost touch with truth. And if that means facing both friends and enemies alike, she's ready. Because this time, Sam isn't asking for a second chance. She's coming back to reclaim her place, as a mother, a warrior, a truth seeker, and maybe once more, as Dante's woman. Meanwhile, the story Danny is being pulled into has gone far beyond the usual pain of a boy growing up amid loss. It has become a psychological storm, sweeping him into a whirlwind of madness that refuses to stop. It all began when Danny, through an unforeseen twist, received a clue. Small but powerful enough to shake the core of his inner world, that Sam, the mother he believed was dead, might still be alive. An anonymous note. A misplaced object. A whispered voice caught by accident. Anything could have been the trigger. For Danny, it was the moment that shattered years of silence. He didn't tell anyone right away. He held on to the information like a sacred secret, not because he doubted it, but because he feared that if he said it out loud, the world would deny it. But as more signs began to appear, a silent phone call from an unknown number, a piece of cloth with a familiar scent, an old photograph falling from a book no one remembered placing, Danny could no longer lie to himself. He knew. He knew his mother wasn't dead. He knew something terrible had been orchestrated to cover up the truth. And that truth was now beating violently in his chest, turning into an obsession he couldn't shake. This awareness is not just changing Danny, it's opening a new chapter for all of Port Charles. Because if Sam is still alive, then everything that was once accepted as fact, her death, the identification of her body, the people who benefited from her disappearance, must now be questioned. And Danny, still only a teenager, is becoming the center of a dangerous web, where any bit of information he carries in his mind could be the very thing that topples someone, or causes someone else to vanish. Sam being alive isn't just a shock. It's a complete upheaval of the foundation many are standing on. Drew, who once delivered the news of her death, was he involved? Jason, the father Danny never truly understood, how will he react when he realizes his son has been chasing the truth alone? And Dante, the man who once loved Sam, might have to face a painful reality, that the woman he forced himself to let go never actually left. Sam's return, even unofficial, has already started to seed chaos, simply through the idea that she may still exist. Danny, with the curiosity of a child and the resilience of someone forced to grow up too fast, begins following the clues, stepping into the shadows of a conspiracy far beyond his grasp. Every move he makes puts him in danger, not just himself, but also those who have fought to keep the truth buried. His solitary journey, where he cannot fully trust anyone, is becoming one of the biggest shocks Port Charles has ever faced. He's not just uncovering the truth about his mother, he's inching closer to secrets tied to systems of power, to people who manipulate information, and to those who make others disappear when they're no longer useful. Danny's dreams now blur into something darker. Not images of a lost mother, but the unshakable feeling that she is still out there, waiting to be rescued, desperate for someone to believe she's alive. He begins to hear her voice in the wind, in the rain, in the stillest moments, and it's no longer imagination. It's obsession. It's a bond that defies space and time. It's the thing driving him to act, to uncover the truth before every last piece of evidence is erased. The ripple effects are growing. Relationships are cracking. Alliances are being pushed to the edge. And once again, Port Charles enters a state of high alert. No one dares say what's real, what's a lie, or who orchestrated Sam's death without a trace. But one thing is now undeniable: Danny is no longer a side character. He is becoming the gatekeeper of a secret that could bring down the very system the town's most powerful figures have fought to keep intact. And if Sam is alive, if Danny is the one who finds her, then everything Port Charles thought it knew about itself will be changed forever. A new chapter, dark and haunting, has officially begun. The unexpected and long-awaited return of legendary characters Sam and Britt, played by Kelly Monaco and Kelly Thiebaud, is not only a turning point for General Hospital, but also the harbinger of a whole new chapter, more intense, more dangerous, and more volatile than any previous era of Port Charles. After a lengthy absence, both Sam and Britt were presumed missing, one declared dead, the other plunged into a tragic and tearful, questionable end. But now, in July, when they resurface together, it's not a reunion, it's an unofficial declaration of war against all the forces behind their disappearance. This return is no accident, no personal matter, but a carefully calculated strategy, after months of undercover, hiding, investigating, and waiting for the right moment to strike. Both Sam and Britt have suffered betrayal, been cut out of the lives of those who loved them, and had their identities manipulated to serve the political, financial, and power interests of others. But the time of silence is over. They return not only with anger, but with evidence of a year of attempted murder, information swapping, identity forgery, and memory manipulation of the people of Port Charles. While Britt was believed to have died in a bloody attack, the reality is that she survived, rescued by a shadowy organization and kept alive as a living witness to the hospital's rigging for dark gain. She's no longer just a doctor, she's become the keeper of secret documents, top-secret patient files, medical projects that have been used for money laundering and inhumane experimentation. And Sam, a woman who fought for justice with the instincts of a detective and the heart of a mother, returns scarred, but also with a terrifying determination. She knows who her friends are and who her enemies are. She knows the secrets behind her own faked death. And she carries a list of names that must be brought to light. Their return also throws other characters into a spiral of both personal and power crises. Jason, a man torn between his past with Sam and a hollow present, is forced to confront his guilt for not trusting his intuition, that Sam is not dead. Dante, who loved Sam in silence after Lulu disappeared, must now confront not only the complexity of his feelings, but also the decisions he made during her absence. Drew, who has been the victim of several schemes, is now thrust into a position of doubt. Did he know Sam was alive? Or worse, is he involved in helping to hide it? Port Charles is no longer a safe place. Every move Sam and Britt make now cracks the walls that once seemed the strongest. Carly, who once thought she was the secret coordinator of most of the social alliances, is now on the defensive, as both Sam and Britt dig up details about her, from her complicated relationship with Sunny to her covert actions with the Corinthos organization. Ava, Rick, and even characters who seem to have retired, like Victor and Nina, feel the pressure as ghosts of the past they thought they had buried, step out of the shadows with real faces, real voices, and real intentions. And while all of Port Charles is in a state of emotional turmoil, people are beginning to realize a simple but terrifying truth: Sam and Britt are not back to find love. They're back to break the old rules, to rebuild a society that's been corrupted by systematic lies. They're a new symbol of survival, not in a cute, forgiving way, but with the claws of truth, the fangs of justice, and the eyes of those who've lost everything. The return of the two Kellys, Kelly Monaco and Kelly Thiebaud, is more than just a reunion of two beloved characters. It's a confirmation that General Hospital is constantly evolving, unafraid to delve into the darkest places and bring up the unspeakable. This is the moment when those who have been excluded, marginalized, and buried alive by lies will emerge, stronger, tougher, and more dangerous than ever. July will be the month when Port Charles will never be the same. Small details will become triggers, looks will become warnings, and old relationships will disintegrate to make way for the naked truth. And at the center of it all, Sam and Britt, two women who are not just back, but back to make it so that nothing can ever be the same again. Nothing sweet, nothing gentle. Just judgment, rebirth, and a fire that is ready to burn all of Port Charles down. Jason's story is about to take an explosive turn as Sam's unexpected return upends everything he's ever believed in. Jason, who once stood firm amid his inner turmoil, is now faced with a breathtakingly complex reality. The two most important women in his life, Sam and Britt, have both returned at the same time, bringing with them the past, the truth, the pain, and the unresolved desires. And in the midst of this chaos, a whole new love triangle is forming, not through clear choices, but through a series of calculations, psychological adjustments, and simmering tensions that everyone can feel. With Sam's return, Jason is forced to confront the feelings he's kept locked away in his heart for so long. She's not dead, as he painfully believed. She didn't leave him because she abandoned him, but because she was drawn into some dark conspiracy that Jason, no matter how good a truth-teller, had never touched. Sam's survival wasn't just a shock to him, it was proof that he, once considered unbeatable in the world of crime and counterintelligence, had missed out on the most important thing, the woman he loved. Guilt, pain, and confusion now mixed with unacknowledged joy. And Jason, the man who had always been quiet, was now caught in a storm of emotions with no way out. But while Jason was still struggling to understand what he really felt for Sam, Britt, the woman who had been with him through life and death, who had touched his seemingly frozen heart, had returned, not weak, not begging, but self-possessed and strong. Britt was no longer a victim of unrequited love. She knew she had a place in Jason's heart, and she also knew that Sam was a ghost who had never really left his mind. But now, with all three of them in the same space, the tension between them was inevitable. Jason was now caught between two opposing poles: Sam, a symbol of the past, of family, of Danny, of what he had thought was an irreplaceable destiny, and Britt, a representation of the present, of a relationship without strings attached, built on understanding and action in danger, where neither had to pretend to be anything other than themselves. Every time Jason's eyes met Sam, a part of his heart softened. But every time he looked at Britt, he felt a sense of balance, where there was no judgment, only companionship. The irony was, both women knew Jason so well, they didn't need to speak to know what the other was thinking, worrying, feeling. Tensions are rising not just within Jason, but throughout Port Charles. Those close to him are watching, wary. Carly is wary, knowing that Sam and Britt have both been emotional threats to Jason in different ways. Sonny begins to intervene indirectly, worried that Jason will lose his sanity in the larger game. And even Dante, who once had a deep connection with Sam, can't stand by as she watches her get closer to Jason, while Britt shows no signs of backing down. A love triangle is no longer a fantasy, but a reality. No one is in the clear. No feelings are left untested. Jason is torn between past and present, between deep love and lasting connection, between heart and mind. And the scariest thing is, for the first time in his life, he's not sure he can make the right choice. Meanwhile, Britt and Sam, two women who used to be rivals, now don't need to argue loudly to assert their positions. Every word, every look, every small action carries hidden meaning, as if they are both playing a mental chess game, where Jason is the king and they are the queens fighting in silence. Sam carries the look of someone who has lost everything and now wants it back, not with tears but with truth. Britt carries the confidence of someone who once accepted that she would not be chosen, but this time refused to accept defeat. This triangle is more than just a tangled love affair. It is a powerful stimulus for a series of major shifts throughout the entire show. Jason, who has been a pillar of stability and decisive action, is now losing his way. The decisions he makes from this point on will affect not just Sam and Britt, but Danny, Carly, Sonny, the Port Charles underworld that is waiting to exploit his weakness to tear down the power structure. And if Jason cannot choose, time will choose for him. But the price of delay, of letting emotions rule, may be the loss of everything, including both women and himself. In this coming scorching summer, General Hospital is about more than just a return. It's about the inevitable collisions between people who once loved each other too deeply, and are now forced to choose, to love again, or to destroy it all. The story of one of the new adjustments taking place in Port Charles today that is shaking the entire power and emotional foundation of this town. And that adjustment doesn't come from an outside force, nor from any criminal organization that controls the underworld. It comes from two women who were once pushed aside, Sam and Britt, souls who were once broken, once beaten, and now rise from the ashes with a common goal: revenge. Their return is not the arrival of two victims. It is a cold, clear declaration that a purge is coming, with no rules, no mercy, and no exceptions. Sam, after surviving in the dark, has learned to see clearly who the real enemy is, who made her leave her son, lose her identity, lose everything without an explanation. She is no longer the woman who lived in overlapping love affairs, in moral dilemmas. She is a machine reprogrammed by betrayal, by the terrifying silence that those she once trusted gave her. And Britt, who once fell to the bottom of despair, once thought dead, now returns not to apologize to anyone, but to reclaim justice for herself, for what she lost, and for the wounds that have never truly healed. One of the biggest changes taking place is the combination of two people who were once on opposite ends. Sam and Britt are no longer rivals for Jason's love, but allies in the shadows. They understand that only women know how to hurt each other deeply. But only women know how to mend those broken pieces and use them together as weapons. Now, Sam and Britt are forging a secret but deadly alliance, and what makes it all so crazy is that they chose to start their revenge at the same time, with the same plan, and with the same list of targets. New truths are being uncovered every day, medical records are falsified, forensic evidence is altered, connections between seemingly unrelated characters are now terrifyingly unnatural. Sam and Britt are no longer just learning, they are controlling. Those who once manipulated them, Drew, Rick, Ava, and even Carly, Sunny, and Victor, are now sensing a shift in the power structure. No one could be sure they had no secrets the other two women hadn't touched. And that was where the madness began. Sam's anger was a slow burn, it was quiet, but it was deep. She planned with the precision of a detective who had crossed the line of morality. She knew who had lied, who had forged the papers, who had profited from her death. Britt, on the other hand, was a fire. She didn't need perfect evidence, she needed confrontation. Britt's every move was powerful, fierce, and aimed at the most vulnerable. She didn't wait for the justice system to act. She would be her own justice system, one that had no room for compromise. Both were spreading fear quietly but effectively. Those who had once sat at the top were now acting unconventionally. Changing schedules, hiring bodyguards, erasing old tracks, trying to re-engage with abandoned relationships. Everyone knows that Sam and Britt's return is not simply a resurrection, it's a punishment. And while Port Charles remains mired in suspicion, Jason, the man standing between the two women, is the uncontrollable link. He is both the source of unresolved emotions and the living witness to all that has been forgotten. The purge that Sam and Britt are preparing is not just about personal revenge, but about the destruction of a system that once crushed them, that used them as tools, that called their survival accidental, and that doomed them with misinformation and cold nods from the wings of power. Now they are back, and with each new piece of evidence brought to light, each person pulled from their comfort zone, a pillar in Port Charles's world begins to falter. This is no longer a story of love. This is the beginning of a war, where two women once rejected stand on the cusp of truth, and are ready to burn it all down. No one can stop them. No one can predict their next move. Because Sam and Britt aren't fighting to survive. They're fighting to end it all. And the purge, insane, painful, unforgiving, is about to begin.